We, 2 years ago, began to create an entrepreneurial hub for Liverpool. Me being me, decided that Liverpool didn't really need another entrepreneurial hub, which is a bit ironic given our current location. And at the same time, the UN had begun to launch something called the Sustainable Development Goals. Now, we haven't heard of the Sustainable Development Goals because most people haven't. It's basically a plan for the planet. It's an attempt to globally balance economic, social and environmental impacts because we need to. The strapline behind the Sustainable Development Goals is something called, is leaving nobody behind. The UN are this huge animal with this huge challenge of trying to eradicate poverty and hunger and inequality across the world, but never really resonate much in a city like Liverpool. When we talk about these things to most people, we get blank faces and people saying, isn't that about starving kids in Africa? Well, yeah, it is, and about places like Aleppo and the problems that they have as a city. But Liverpool also has its own problems. So we opened the doors in our small co-working place, which is about a 5-minute walk away from here, 2 minutes away from John Lewis. And literally a month later, the UN found out what we were doing. I was invited over to New York, typical Scouser, stood on the stage at New York in a pair of jeans and trainers because no one told me I was going to be on the stage, and I was racing to the airport. But ever since then, it has just snowballed and snowballed and snowballed. So we are officially the world's first. We are also right in the middle of an invitation for the city of Liverpool, or the city region, to be more accurate. So Steve Rotherham is now in receipt of an invite from Liverpool City Region to be one of 20 pilot cities around the world. It's a significant list. I really wish I could share more details now, but it does include other cities like Los Angeles, Tokyo, Seoul, Moscow, Doha, and Silicon Valley are in there. It's an incredible list. The only reason that Liverpool got that invite was because of the work we did. So that's sort of what we are and what we do. The 5 reasons, now this is a bit tough. The first reason that we created the model for the 2030 goal was the Sustainable Development Goals are based on the world's biggest consultation exercise. So the 17 goals, 169 targets, 230 indicators. Every problem you can think of is there somewhere. But the important thing is you can't separate all those problems. You can't address climate change without education. You can't address education without gender equality. And all of those things, similar in a lot of respects to a lot of the wonderful regulation that's benefited our society coming out of the EU in the recent years. The second reason that this is important is that cities are absolutely becoming the new battlegrounds. You know, there's an interesting analogy to what happened in America with the not so wonderful current president, I'm not even going to mention his name, doesn't really believe in climate change, decided that as a country that they weren't going to honour the Paris Agreement. But then a lot of the cities then rebelled independently. It's like, okay, that might be your choice, but you know, science is at the heart of that, and we're going to go with the scientists rather than the idiot president. So a lot of the cities began or continued to invest and to look at their own environmental impacts beyond what the government was saying to them. The UN are doing that. The whole of the UN is restructuring. Their business plan, 70 years old. Donald Trump also withdrew their his funding from them. So the UN is trying to restructure as a very city-relevant model. And that's why Liverpool is part of this pilot project, because it's about the UN trying to be more relevant in every city around the world. So I think there's a wonderful opportunity whether it's Liverpool as a global citizen or as part of that EU citizenship, to build stronger links independently with cities. And I think even this potential UN network will create a certain amount of gravity and also this universal language that does need to be locally relevant, but I think as an opportunity for more interaction beyond what is formally agreed or not over the coming few years and months, I think is a wonderful opportunity. The third reason, I think, especially for a city like Liverpool, is within the UN framework, one of the big reasons for its existence was that philanthropy is not the answer. We've got some huge problems in cities and around the world. Asking people to donate money just won't cut it. The problems are too big. We need the solutions now. So there is an increasing exploration about engaging, I'll use my words carefully, engaging with the private sector. Some of them have a great reputation, some of them not so great, but I think being more entrepreneurial about how we solve the world's problems has to be a bigger part of the solution. You know, philanthropy is also part, but we need to better engage with the private sector. One, because they're responsible for most of the problems, and two, they have most of the assets available. Which is interesting because I was in Heidelberg last week with the UN Director General, and a lot of big businesses keen to support cities that support the UN, and I think that's a wonderful opportunity to bring new assets into the city to create more impact locally. So I think entrepreneurship is absolutely key, and that's a big part of our model. So even the 2030 Hope for Clarity, it is not a charity, it is not even a social enterprise formally. We are a company, but we're about to become a new type of company, something called a B Corp, which is a for-profit model, but you have to have a social mission. I think the other opportunity, or the other reason for us, I'm not a big believer in anything top-down, in isolation. We've spent 2 years corralling the great and the good, whether they're formal or informal leaders across every sector, the private sector, the public sector, the social sectors, because we need to have an ownership. And we've got, I think, up to about 300 or 400 people in our community at the moment. We are absolutely supporting the local community groups, the local charities, whilst we're also trying to influence the mayor and his new city region policies with also some success. One of the reasons why we picked Liverpool as well, it's probably, and I know I'm biased, but we did have a couple of other cities to explore this, but it is probably the perfect city to do this. Its history of being such a huge influence on the British Empire, its history then going into the managed decline of the 70s and 80s, which we'll speak not much more of. But I think the story that Liverpool can offer, and I think also the passion and the creativity locally, are still trapped within the city. I spend a lot of time in and around different cities in Europe and further afield, and most people know the city because of the Beatles and because of football and because of its personality. And that's one of the reasons that we're trying to build that into our model, which is going to be interesting because our model will hopefully, or will be replicated in the other 20 cities around the world. So we're trying to create a sort of a mini UN Liverpool embassy in 20 other cities around the world, which could be very interesting. So last week I was in Heidelberg as part of the advisory group creating this SDG Cities pilot, which is interesting. It's also strange for me, a local guy with a laptop, why on earth I'm in a room like that. But the UN Director General is really, really keen on how the UN can better engage in cities across all stakeholders. The UN knows they're not seen as being very relevant. The UN knows they're not seen as being very accessible. So his speech to the audience, and this is one of the highlights of it, I can give you the rest if you need it. He said, what used to be a bipolar world with controlled confrontation between two superpowers has metamorphosed into something much more diffuse. Internationally, mid-level powers act increasingly autonomously from the big powers. Domestically, the state's monopoly of power is challenged by non-state actors. Cyberspace is mostly privately owned and operated by huge corporations. And even within governments, mayors can at times be as influential in making policy as prime ministers or presidents. And for me, I see a strange world of opportunity. I'm just a bit of a born optimist, sadly, which doesn't help me pay the bills. But I think potentially for Liverpool as a city, and for me cities are about its people, it's not just the mayor. The mayor we might need some senior leadership and some senior buy-in, but what we have tried to do is just plant a UN flag in the ground in Liverpool. We have absolutely created a certain spotlight. We haven't told many people yet. We're probably one of Liverpool's best kept secrets. But for me, there's an opportunity for those who understand the role, either as an individual or an organisation or a city, not just as an EU citizen, but also as a global citizen. You know, we look after Liverpool where we can, but I think we've got an opportunity and also an obligation to help those in other cities around the world. There's a lot of great practice in this city that never gets out. So hopefully we can play a part in that and hopefully use our new UN friends to create more opportunities for social impact around the world.